Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, great. Good morning again. My name is John Bassinger Flores. I am the president of this wonderful congregation, and it is my distinct privilege to welcome you this morning to the first worship service of 2021 at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Studio City. We are delighted to have everyone here this morning. We're especially delighted to have any visitors who are with us for the first time or returning visitors. We're so glad to have you in our Zoom worship today. So really appreciate you being here. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I wanted to let you know that we are a welcoming congregation. We strive to support and affirm all who walk through our doors. Here, values and deeds are the windows to the soul, not the color of your skin, whom you love, the gender pronouns you use, the particular forms of human sensory or neurodiversity you may embody, or what your cultural, ethnic, or religious background may be. We encourage each person's journey to find their own answers to the great religious questions of life in a community of open hearts and questioning minds. We will have some discussion and conversation right after the worship today, so please stick around for that. Two announcements for us to be aware of today. There will be about 5 or 10 minutes after worship, whenever we get started, there'll be a conversation in the same Zoom meeting about the Transforming Hearts modules that we recently completed. So we hope as many of you as possible can stay for that discussion to talk about the insights we gained, the lessons we learned, and our reflections on that process of working through those modules. Also at 2 p.m. today, we have our first Board of Trustees meeting of the year. Anyone is welcome to attend that, and the same Zoom link will be the link for the board meeting at 2 o'clock. With that, again, welcome to worship this morning at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Studio City.
Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Our call to worship this morning is attributed to Kalidasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. It is a sacred time, this, and a sacred virtual space, this. Let's begin our sacred time together in song. We will sing our first hymn, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make for all that is alive, we sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise, for all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
And now, please join me in reading the words of our covenant in unison. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, thus do we covenant. And our doxology. And it's time for all ages. I have found a video about self-care for children. We're talking a little bit about self-care today in our service, but I would say this video is not just for kids. It has really good advice for adults too.
Self-care for kids. Practicing self-care at a young age can help create good habits. These healthy habits can then help reduce the risk of developing mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. Practicing self-care can help carry you through difficult times. Did you know that self-care can also help boost your immune system? What exactly is self-care? Self-care is setting time aside throughout your day to care for your mind and body. Basic self-care is one that you might be familiar with, like brushing your teeth, eating, or taking a bath. Self-care can be physical, spiritual, social, and emotional. Some activities you can do for physical self-care is exercising, eating healthy, drinking plenty of water, getting plenty of sleep, walking your dog, and deep breathing. Journaling, practicing kindness, compassion, gratitude, forgiveness are some ways to practice emotional self-care. A cup couple of ways to practice social self-care are spending time with family, building healthy relationships, keeping social media positive, and setting boundaries. Spending time in nature, meditation, and praying are some examples of spiritual self-care. Self-care is not rocket science. It's simply spending time to love yourself. 3 steps to creating a self-care plan. Choose a time throughout the day that works best for you. Pick certain days out of the week to practice self-care. Identify people you can talk to when you come across obstacles. Always keep in mind that it's okay to make mistakes, and we all have bad days. Remember, repetition of a certain behavior or actions can create a habit. When you are at your best, you become more resilient and the possibilities are endless. Do what's best for you and be yourself. Thank you for watching.
So yesterday, I mentioned to a few of you in passing that I was struggling mightily with preparing for this service today. For days, I couldn't think of a topic that didn't sound either wait a second. It didn't sound either A, overwhelming to pull off, or B, too sugarcoating of our current reality. And there are all kinds of helpful tips online or on the radio about what you should do to weather this time of year and this stage of the pandemic. For example, I listened to the Minister of Loneliness in the UK. There actually is a minister for loneliness. They recognize it as a public health crisis issue. And she said her number one piece of advice was to call people up and talk to them. And I'm thinking, duh, hopefully we're all in the habit of doing that by now. And I'm pretty sure I've suggested that once or twice in sermons already. Or another example of a helpful tip is have a positive mindset. Whatever. I mean, some of it truly is wise and helpful and useful. And then I'd be like, okay, I have something, and I sit down on my computer to write, but I would just end up crying and thinking, it still sounds like sugarcoating to me, and I'm a hack, and they're not going to buy this for a second. So I'll admit I'm dealing with some depression, which I'm sure many of us are at this time of year and with everything going on. So I figure I'll just be honest with you all about that today and stumble through the service as best I can. I did come across something that I just thought was very funny, and I liked it because laughter is therapeutic. And even when, and maybe especially when, it's things that are somewhat inappropriate to laugh at. So I'm sure some of you heard this already. It's been out there. A comic from New York, Robin Shaw, came across her New Year's resolutions for 2020 from last year and filmed herself just cracking up reading them. They were things like travel more, lose weight, make more money, and be more social. Like all the things that were really very impossible to do in the past year. And her laughter is very infectious, so I recommend checking it out. I would have just put the video on for you all, but one of them was spend more time with grandma, and then she totally loses it because her grandma died this past year, but she's dying cracking up. And she's like, I know it's not funny. I know it's not funny. But many of us can relate to the tragic absurdity of this time, and that's what her laughter was about, tragic absurdity. And hey, that might have been a good topic for today, spirituality of tragic absurdity. At any rate, laughter is good medicine, and I hope folks are finding things that make them laugh. When I had COVID back in March, and I know now I had COVID, I have a positive antibody test for whatever that's worth. I remember there was a point where my breathing felt weird, and I wondered if I was getting short of breath or if I just had anxiety. But what helped was watching comedy. I'd start laughing and then I would relax. So I recommend finding things that make you laugh. If you go on YouTube and, you know, look for comedy, more and more little funny tidbits come up. So that's one of my sage pieces of advice for you this morning. And speaking of joy, it's time for joys and sorrows. At the center of our service, in the center of our lives, let us take time to bear witness with some reverence with what is in the center of our hearts. It's time for our weekly ritual of sharing our joys and sorrows. You're always encouraged to light a candle at this time every week and or type your joy, sorrow, memory, or hope into the chat. Please precede it with a J and S, or joy or sorrow, so our reader knows what is to be read aloud. And today that's Joyce Fiddler.
When a sorrow is shared, it is lessened, and when a joy is shared, it is multiplied. In that spirit, Austin says he has a sorrow. I am sad we went through a lot, but now we know what we know to go into 2021 for a better year with last year's knowledge. And he also shares a joy. I'm glad to be with a beautiful community as this. A joy from Jean Hurd. Happy birthday to Marilyn, my bride and joy. A sorrow from Nancy Holland. Missing my brother on his birthday yesterday. He died 15 years ago, and I still miss his wisdom and sense of humor. He was a great mentor for me. From Jolly. Oh, a sorrow from Antoinette. Both of my grandmothers live in Florida, and they are in the hospital. One of them has COVID, and we don't know yet about the other. I'm still hoping for a full recovery for both. From Gail Natzler, a sorrow. My best friend, Margaret Huntington Ward, placed her husband in memory care last month. On December 20th, their son died from COVID. She knows she does not dare inform her husband because he's too fragile. A joy from Carly. My fiance and I got engaged on Christmas Day. Congratulations. A joy from Bonnie. It was not thrilling to contract a mild case of COVID and then pass it on to the girls. Miraculously, Nick escaped, but she is so grateful it wasn't worse for any of us. She can't imagine where she got it unless it was at the market. Please use extra caution, everyone. From Dorothy, sorrow, missing my mom. From Allison, a sorrow, missing my mom, Jeannie Mills. I spread her ashes in the ocean a year ago this month. And the joy is I will be visiting her at the beach in 2 weeks. A joy from Dorothy, Balasag. So proud our 16-year-old Henry, who was interviewed by a Portland classical music station for his work with music. And that's with love from both Russ and Dorothy. A joy from Jerry to continue to be healthy in the new year and adding another year to my life on this glorious planet. Happy birthday. And from Diane Rowland, a joy that we have an opportunity to finally dethrone Mitch the Grinch. Voter turnout in Georgia is encouraging. Joy that 2020 is finally over. Hopefully 2021 will be much better. And from John, a joy that we have so many great folks who bravely read these joys and sorrows each week. You're welcome, John. And we end with lighting a candle to represent all the joys and sorrows that folks have decided to hold in the sanctuaries of their hearts.
Thank you, Joyce. And now I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer. Afterward, we'll have a full minute of meditative silence, and we'll sing our responsive hymn, Comfort Me. And our prayer today is by my colleague, Jane Jepka. O Spirit of life and renewal, we have wintered enough, mourned enough, oppressed ourselves enough. Our souls are too long cold and buried, our dreams all but forgotten, our hopes unheard. We are waiting to rise from the dead. In this, the season of steady rebirth, we awaken to the power so abundant, so holy, that returns each year through earth and sky. We will find our hearts again and our good spirits. We will love and believe and give and wonder and feel again the eternal powers. The flow of life moves ever onward through one faithful spring and another, and now another. May we be forever grateful. Alleluia. Amen. And now let us join in a period of communal silence. And it's time for our weekly ritual of sharing our financial gifts. And want to be sure that, in case it wasn't announced last Sunday, the result of our auction that we had just a few weeks ago, we raised over $5,000. So thank you, everyone who either contributed items to bid on or did bid on items and participated in the celebration afterward, which I thought was a lot of fun. So thank you so much for your generosity there. As you know, we rely on the generosity of our members and friends more than ever. And it's all in support of the ministry and programs that offer connection, inspiration, and hope, these things that are needed more than ever. Encourage you to invite your family and friends to worship with us so we can share those gifts more widely. The offering will now be gratefully received. Okay, now I have something a little more serious. Um, when I'm in doubt about what to preach about, I always go to Dr. Rachel Naomi Riemann. She's the author of books filled with stories that heal. She wrote Kitchen Table Wisdom, and this one, My Grandfather's Blessings, Stories of Strength, Refuge, and Belonging. This one is called L'Chaim. Many years ago, my grandfather gave me a silver wine goblet so small that it holds no more than a thimbleful of wine. Exquisitely engraved into its bowl is a bow with long ribbon streamers. It was made in Russia long ago. He gave it to me during one of the many afternoons when we sat together at the kitchen table in my parents' home, memorizing phrases from his old books and discussing the nature of life. I was quite young then, no more than 5 or 6, and when I became restless, he would revive my attention by bringing out the sacramental Concord grape wine he kept in the back of the refrigerator. He would fill my little beribboned wine glass with Manischewitz and then put a splash of wine into his own, a big silver ceremonial cup, generations old. Then we would offer a toast together. At the time, the only other celebration I knew was singing Happy Birthday and blowing out the candles. I loved this even better. My grandfather had taught me the toast we used. It was a single Hebrew word, l'chaim, which he told me meant to life. He always said it with great enthusiasm. Is it to a happy life, Grandpa? I had asked him once. He had shaken his head no. It is just to life, he told me. At first, it did not make a lot of sense to me, and I struggled to understand his meaning. Is it like a prayer? I asked uncertainly. Ah, no, he told me. We pray for the things we don't have. We already have life. But then why do we say this before we drink the wine? He smiled at me fondly. Grandpa, I said, suddenly suspicious, did you make it up? He chuckled and assured me that he had not. For thousands of years, all over the world, people have said this same word to each other before drinking wine together. It was a Jewish tradition. I puzzled about this last for a long time. Is it written in the Bible, Grandpa? I asked at last. No, he said. It is written in people's hearts. Seeing the confusion on my face, he told me that l'chaim meant that no matter what difficulty life brings, no matter how hard or painful or unfair life is holy and worthy of celebration. Even the wine is sweet to remind us that life itself is a blessing. It has been almost 55 years since I last heard my grandfather's voice, but I remember the joy with which he toasted life and the twinkle in his eye as he said, L'chaim. It has always seemed remarkable to me that such a toast could be offered for generations by a people for whom life has not been easy. But perhaps it can only be said by such people, and only those who have lost and suffered can truly understand its power. L'chaim is a way of living life. As I've grown older, it seems less and less about celebrating life and more about the wisdom of choosing life. In the many years that I have been counseling people with cancer, I have seen people choose life again and again, despite loss, despite pain and difficulty. The same immutable joy I saw in my grandfather's eyes is there in them all. And now it's time for our musical offering. This is a song called Forza by Nelly Furtado. I feel like Forza is also a version of L'chaim. Oh, I love that. Wouldn't that be fun to just pile on top of each other just to receive a soccer ball? Okay, so here's a funny story. Years ago, like 12 years ago, I read that story, L'chaim, to the church I served in Pasadena at Neighborhood Church. Only I completely mispronounced L'chaim. I pronounced it, oh, it's so bad, L'chim. Okay, over and over, L'chim, L'chim. And every time I said it, I noticed people were cringing. And after the service, of course, I was corrected. One of the members said to me, I kept wanting to call out, it's L'chaim. And I was like, why didn't you? But I guess the church was too prim and proper and no one wanted to interrupt the service. The sad thing is I grew up in a half Jewish community, hearing people say L'chaim all the time, but I didn't recognize it when I read it. And, you know, it's sort of a metaphor for life during the pandemic. Rather than living life as we have, we are reading it, we are watching it, or we're listening to life out there or as it was. It starts to feel like mispronouncing life. It's definitely getting old, but it is life nevertheless. And no matter how challenging it is, we still need to figure out how to dig deep inside ourselves to carry on and be grateful for it. It's like Rachel Riemann comments how ironic it is that this joyous to life toast was created by a people for whom life has not been easy for generations. But maybe that's the point. The harder life is, the more profoundly we can be grateful. So how does that work exactly? Well, it's one of the true platitudes that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, not for every situation, but most of them. In the foreword to another of Riemann's book, the Kitchen Table Wisdom one, it says in the foreword, suffering, whether physical, emotional, spiritual, or as often the case, all three, can be a doorway to transformation. That's lovely, I thought. But then the next few sentences kind of cracked me up in a Robin Shaw kind of way, the comedian who laughed at her 2020 goals, because the book came out before the year 2000. It said, as we move to the end of this century and millennium, our personal suffering is sometimes worsened by a lack of communication and community. Illness often intensifies these feelings of isolation. I was like, ooh, that's profound. More like, dang, you got that right. Lately, they've been interviewing preachers and ministers, clergy on the radio. One of them a few days ago was talking about how important his sabbatical was in renewing his vigor for ministry and preaching. I was like, uh-oh, if a minister's sabbatical is caused to be interviewed, sabbaticals must be getting scarce and endangered. The minister said, I think the congregation saw the long-term benefit of giving breaks and rests as opposed to burning a pastor out. I was like, yeah, but then it got pretty dark. He said next, I can't tell you how many pastors leave ministry or even commit suicide or die in the pulpit. It's not a profession that always ends well. And I'm grateful to have a congregation that said, we want your story to end well. I was like, wait, do ministers really die in the pulpit? Is that a thing? Oh no. By the way, I am due for a sabbatical in 2022. I think if I still have a job here, and I hope I do. Oh well, all kidding aside. The point of that profile was lovely. It was about self-care and how vital self-care is. We hear about New Year's resolutions this time of year, but what resolutions are most often about is self-care. Each of us knows, at least deep down, if not at the forefront of our minds, all of us know what we should be doing more of or less of. Do we not? And whether it's related to our physical, spiritual, or emotional health. For my part, I need to quit sugar and focus on healing my gut. This is something I did back in 2014, and unfortunately, I need to do it again. My gut is leaking and causing myriad health issues from my skin to my mental state. I also need to heal my hip, which has become a problem from sitting too much. So I need to go to the chiropractor more, which I did yesterday. I need to exercise more, which sadly I haven't done in so long, I don't even remember the last time I went hiking, which is what I usually do for exercise. I'm also 3 scenes out from finishing my novel that I've worked on off and on for 8 years, and that feeds my soul. So those are my self-care resolutions in a nutshell. And what are yours? You know, when we start to hurt, our self-care demands are hard to ignore. So again, that suffering is like a cue. It's like a prelude to greater strength and health. Listen to that call. Don't let it feel like an albatross that you have to carry around, or that it's a terrible thing that you have to do, that you have to face. You know, take it a day at a time, doing a little each day to pluck away at it. Here's more helpful radio advice. Repetition becomes routine, then it becomes a way of life. Health and well-being becomes a lifestyle. Honestly, I'm relieved. Every action of the day has repercussions, and all those repercussions have added up and tired me out. If I can do things now that give me energy instead of taketh it away, if the things I do lift my spirits instead of draining my spirits, then this is all really, really good news. because this is a big takeaway for this morning, because the very last thing the sabbatical pastor said at the end of his interview was, thank you for the opportunity. And I pray for all of us to make it safely out of this year behind us and move into the new one with renewed energy and zest. And here's the best part. Our communities, our nation, our world needs us at our best. You guys need me at my best, and my children need me at my best. Who needs you at your best? If nothing comes to mind right away, I envy you, because sometimes I fantasize about how nice it would be to not be needed. But at the end of the day, there is always ourselves who need us at our best. So we can live each day, liminal as it may be, to its fullest. So we can go to sleep at the end of the day, satisfied that we did our best because we were at our best. We are at our best when we chip away a little each day at our self-care needs and goals. Find buddies to support you. For example, I have a friend who is also making lifestyle changes, and we plan to do self-care Saturdays, taking hikes, doing yoga, things like that. And you can have buddies from afar as well, checking in with each other, reporting your goals, laughing off your failures, supporting each other emotionally. I hope the senior fellowship or maybe the men's fellowship, maybe you'd be inspired to, intentionally buddy up within your groups and take me up on this. Have a self-care buddy for the new year. And so, my friends, Happy New Year. Serving you for another year. Outside of my beautiful kids, is the biggest blessing I have in my life. And I am so grateful through all our ups and downs within the congregation, outside in the world, in our personal lives and our family units. It is a blessing to be on this journey with each and every one of you. And I know you need me at my best. And that is what you're going to get in 2021. L'chaim. L'chaim. All right, let's all drink a toast to L'chaim and sing our last hymn, Turn the World Around.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so